I was a big figure in medical cannabis. I was in the newspaper. I was on the media, and I became a target. I wake up and I hear the knock on my door. Then I hear U.S. Marshals. They took everything, cleared out all the bank accounts, and ruined me financially to reopen back up. I went into a depression for sure. Someone said you should get your real estate license. I said, I am not going to do that. They ran out of options, so I did. Got rated in 2012, got my real estate license in 2014. 6 years later, my team was the #1 real estate team in the state of California. We sold over $1 billion worth of real estate as a team in 1 year.
Suneet Agarwal, real estate builder, team builder, chaos tamer. So says your website. You have a killer real estate brokerage in Sacramento. You also just sold your, I'm going to call it a real estate coaching platform that was making millions. That seemed like an awesome business. And last night, the internet told me that you are a bulldog breeder. Before we talk about any of that, true or false? You sued Barack Obama because he stole your weed.
So we put a restraining order on the federal government during the Obama re-election campaign when they wanted to appear tough on dispensaries in California.
I like my version better.
Yeah, but it was before the fact. They took the weed afterwards, right? I own that dispensary. I wrote the ordinance in Sacramento that still used the tax. Local government was supportive, but during the re-election, they wanted to appear tough on crime. So in the 4 federal districts in California, the 4 of us, like big dogs, ended up becoming martyrs, right? And
That's
I was
amazing.
a martyr in this district.
Well, so let's back out. What time frame is this? And I find the whole path of weed interesting, right? So Easy Pay Direct was processing credit cards for dispensaries in 2012, like in the beginning.
Okay.
Very quickly, that became not okay with Visa, MasterCard. But then we tracked CBD from like 2014, and we've been processing since then. So we went through all these different regulatory challenges. So not the same, obviously, as a dispensary, but it's a very tightly knit path, right? So
Totally.
what year was it that you started a dispensary? And give me the size and scope of the dispensary at that point in time.
Sure. So 2007 is when I started.
Damn.
George W. Bush was still president.
Damn.
Right, and we opened, under the California, like, SB 420. There was real no state like, Colorado wasn't legal yet, right, for the
Recreational.
medicinal. No,
Oh,
for medicinal.
wow.
So we opened then, very quickly. I mean, just the other dispensaries in town were ran by hippies.
Yes.
I was a business guy with a hippie background, right? Like I had dreads, long beard, all that shit once upon a time, right? And I came in and brought my business into the dispensary business and really early on got into like the policy and wanting to make it more legitimate because it wasn't at the time, right? So I hired lawyers, I hired lobbyists, we wrote the ordinances, we would lobby the city. I had like meeting with city council, doing all like the political stuff, and we were successful in our lobbying efforts in Sacramento and Stockton, which were my main places. Living in Sacramento, and it worked. And then we got really big, really fast by using social media marketing, by having smart, like good photos, by having an attractive place. It wasn't like some dingy stoner den. It was a well lit place with like professional looking people, like it was a properly run business when it was all stoner den when I came in. Now, of course, it's all more professional and lit nicely. But when I started, it wasn't. Like we were like something completely new in Northern California, outside of the Bay Area.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that 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 specific, I like to draw parallels to those things to the rest of business at large, right? And the baseline one is just look for the areas that are a mess. And if you look at blue collar spaces right now, automotive shops, snow removal, lawn care. Most of those industries are horribly run, do not leverage
Totally,
technology at all. And so getting into those spaces and cleaning them up isn't very difficult to just have an edge.
totally.
Though, like I look at today, with in the era of AI, making things look pretty is pretty easy now.
It
And
is.
so you can at least pretend to be good and on the front line, right? Like I feel like that's going to be that competitive advantage is going to be gone being pretty. Um, okay, so tell me the story. Tell me where you were and tell me the story of the federal government throwing the hammer at you.
Yeah, so, we had filed the restraining order and continued business as usual. Dude, I had like 40 people working at my shop who had 401ks, who had health insurance, who were on real payroll. We even had workman's comp. No one else in dispensary game had workman's comp. You know what, Brad? We even had a CRM,
Mm,
point of sale system. Everyone's all, "What's this?" Right? Like,
hilarious.
we were a legitimate business, and, people here, like, dispensary back then, and they thought, "Oh, well, all these people making all this money, all these cash, all this good." We were a real business. We made respectable money. It wasn't like we were just burying millions of dollars, right? I had all these things to make us a legitimate business. So, it was crazy. Like, I was in Scottsdale, like, partying, and my ex-girlfriend at the time, well, she was definitely my ex back then, but she's still my ex, right? Like, she's like, "Hey, someone walked by the house and took a photo and was taking pictures." I was like, "What? Like, that doesn't make any sense. No one did that. Like, you must be high or some shit, right?" Um, Come home, and, like, 5 days later, 5 AM, and I felt the heat, right? Like, I don't know what the feeling was, but I felt the heat. And dude, like, I never committed any crimes besides a parking ticket. I don't have any DUIs. Like, I've never been arrested. I never had any charges pressed. I might have been arrested, but I never had any charges pressed, right? And um I wake up and I hear the knock on my door. And you know what that knock is, bro,
It's
right?
loud.
Then I hear it. Then I hear US Marshals.
Oh God.
And at the time, talking about being a bulldog breeder, was that shit still on the internet? So being a bulldog breeder is I had a bunch of bulldogs, expensive American bulldogs, not the English cute ones, but the ones that'll bite you up, right? Because I had been home invaded and tied up in my house too, right? So I got a bunch of bodyguards. Living with bodyguards sucks, Brad.
Bro, okay, listen, I'm sorry. We have to back out to what are you talking about? You got home invaded and tied up? We'll come
Yes.
back to the federal marshals legally sort of breaking into your house and doing things or knocking on your door. Let's start with the home invasion and why you had to start breeding bulldogs.
Yeah, so I mean, I was a big figure in medical cannabis. I was in the newspaper. I was on the media, and I became a target. And I lived in a gated in area, and I had a nice house. And we were out at the club celebrating our 1 year anniversary. Went back home, passed out on the couch, and woke up with a gun tapping me on the forehead and two dudes in ski masks.
Damn.
S- Damn, Suneet, where's the money in the weed? Where's the money in the weed? I was all, well, there's not a lot of either. The money's in the bank account and the weed is in the vault at the shop. I have nothing at my house, right? And they searched the house for 4 hours, tied us up, stole my car, stole my PlayStation and my Xbox, right? Like stupid shit, and took off. So I decided to get some bodyguards, and that was horrible. So I had one bulldog at the time, and I just really got into him because I didn't want bodyguards. So when the feds ended up coming to my house, I had 6 full-grown American bulldogs in this
Damn.
little house, right? So I had about, I don't know, 800 pounds of bulldog in my house. I was feeding them all, like, raw meat too at the time, right? But they were all expensive, like, well-bred dogs. Hear the knock on the door. Um, I'm like, "Hey, let me put up the dogs." They give me like 1 second, and then the door goes flying open with a battering ram, and I'm standing there in my boxers and my underwear with like laser sights on me from all these US Marshals. I'm all, yo, you guys could have just fucking sent me a letter, bro. Why do all this? And then they went through the house, searched everything. That's serving a warrant, right? Is searching everything and taking everything. They went to the business, took everything, and I mean, they took cars. They took a camera in a box my mom had just given me for my birthday, right? They took cell phones. They took cleared out all the bank accounts and left us with really nothing. No charges were pressed, but they ruined me financially to want to re back open, right? Or to reopen back up.
And hold on,
So,
so they did this through the lens of selling weed being federally illegal, and so any proceeds from that activity, were not yours as a result. That was the
yeah, I
stance.
mean, so it was from, depositing money into bank accounts,
Mm,
which is illegal because it was from a dispensary business,
crazy.
which is still the same, which is
It's
still true.
insane.
Right? So that was the lens, and they came to the house expecting to find something because they had done other raids locally where they found guns and meth and illegal shit at people's houses. Dude, I was a clean operator. So as a result, I never had any charges pressed. Thank God. Right? And there was a 5-year statute of limitations, and the 5 years went up.
So, did you get the money back and all the weed?
No,
You didn't get
no.
any of the money or weed back?
We got a little bit of money back, but at that point I owed it all to lawyers.
Oh, damn. And so it disrupted the operation enough that it just sunk the company.
Yeah, I mean, I was all dude, like, nobody wanted to come back to work. People were owed paychecks that the federal government had taken the money for, right? So it was just compounded, and it was really like a defeating thing, right? Like, I went into a depression for sure, right? To where I sat around for 2 years and said, "Well, I got these 8 dogs, I'm just gonna breed American Bulldogs." Little did I know that that was the trashiest experience of my fucking life.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, well, I should have known that. So here I am, like, trying to get by having litters of puppies, which is just horrible, right?
So gross,
Horrible.
dude.
Yeah, it was so horrible and so hard, and never did I make any money. And, my mom, who's always been a big support, and some of my friends, "Oh, dude, you've been sitting on the couch for 2 years. You gotta do something." And I said, "Someone said you should get your real estate license." I said, "Fuck that. I am not gonna do that." They ran out of options, so I did, right? One of my buddies called me and said, "Hey, I made half a million bucks last year. My first year back in real estate." I was all, "Sweet." Right?
And this is like what? What
I
year is
guess
this
I'll do it.
now?
This is 2014.
Okay, got it. So a lot of time has passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got rated in 2012, got my real estate license in, 2014, and, like, my first year of real estate, I was the rookie of the year for a couple thousand agents in this, brokerage I was at. I was, like, "Well, hey, that worked. I'm gonna start a real estate team, and I'm gonna get into coaching." So then, like, the progression in real estate, like, bro, shot up because 6 years later, from 2014, getting my license, my team was the number 1 real estate team in the state of California. We sold over $1 billion worth of real estate as a team in 1 year. Nobody can really say that. There's maybe 5 of us that can say that in history in the United States,
Wow, really?
right? So, yes, it's crazy. For a team, not a brokerage. Brokerages do that,
Yeah.
right? But teams very rarely do that. So, being number 1, 5th biggest economy in the world, California being number 1 for several years, it propelled my credibility that led me into more coaching and consulting opportunities, speaking opportunities, right? Something I tell people every day, right? Like, all these opportunities I've had, a lot of it comes from creating content every day and promoting myself every day, right? Something I still do. I'm at 37 million views on Facebook last 28 days right now, right?
Crazy.
So, yeah, crazy. So, like, the self promotion and the credibility for my success in the industry really lifted up my stock.
So, okay, I have a bunch of questions around that, and I know that you
Good.
sold the consulting company just recently, like in the last couple weeks here,
Yeah,
which is the is it fair to call that the info product company or education company?
somewhat. Yeah.
Okay, well, so we'll get to the specifics, but today, a lot of what you just said begs this question: is it more profitable to run a real estate brokerage or to coach people in real estate?
For me, today, it's much more profitable to run the real estate coaching and consulting company. Yeah. And also, profit's great, but I want to have fun with the stuff that I do. And I want to see the impact of what I advise people to do actually happen.
Mhm.
And when you're dealing with more business owners compared to everyday grinders, it makes me feel better and I enjoy it more.
M
There's more fulfillment.
Meaning with the coaching company, you're dealing with, higher performers.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I often there are lots of industries that I've assessed both from an operational perspective and from a investment perspective, where I look at them and I'm like, mechanically, that is a great, um, opportunity financially, and it sounds terrible to me. So, like, I don't invest in mobile home parks because I know that they're a great asset class. I have no interest in operating them, mostly because it's difficult to get high performing operators in that asset class who are gonna
totally,
live on site and manage the park, right? It's not 0,
totally,
right? But, like, in general, more difficult. And there's also something to be said for, large scale, call centers that are like, yeah, they can make a lot of money. And man, managing a call center sounds brutal.
I own one. Yeah, you actually do the payments as part of my call. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Well, it's great to find that out. Um,
yeah.
okay, so this leads to a question that I like to ask and talk about, but um, are real estate agents the most overpaid professionals on the planet?
No,
Do you think that
not
it's
at all.
how do you rationalize, agents getting a percentage of the sale as opposed to a flat fee for the sale? Do you think that a $10 million house is, you know,
You and me have talked about this ad nauseum, and I know the way that you feel. So me trying to convince you otherwise, I'm not gonna do it,
I don't want you to
right?
try to convince me. I wanna I want you to state your points for why real estate agents should be paid a percentage of the sale, for, the world in general.
Well, it's not the world,
Okay,
right?
the little audience that
It's
listens to me.
well, no, North America is well, okay, for the context of this, well, North America is where, this is prevalent with a percentage, right? Um, I mean, look, people have different expectations. If you want me to sell your super fancy multi-million dollar house and you want me to market the hell out of it and spend the amount of money, like that takes time. And I'm not getting paid up front. If somebody wants to pay me a retainer for my time, I charge a lot per hour. If somebody wants to pay me a retainer up front to list their house, I might be willing to negotiate a bit, but ain't nobody doing that. Right? So a percentage is what makes sense. I'm getting paid on the success that I have on getting you the most amount of money that you want.
Yeah. So I guess I look at that from that perspective, I look at it as like an imperfect incentive structure, right?
Totally.
So, like, the people that really see it as an incentive structure, um, go after the big houses, put a ton of energy in to make it worthwhile. But the masses have this weak incentive structure in place, which is not always aligned, and that's where it gets the bad rap
Yeah.
for me.
From you especially.
From
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
But I
how
mean, at the same time, right? Like real estate brokerages have their hand out and take a big chunk of that.
Yeah.
right? Like I still got to pay taxes on that as a 1099 person,
Yeah, so
right? And now, like some big percentage of transactions are generated through Zillow.
mm,
Do you know that Zillow wants 40% of the commission?
damn. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, look, in the world of, previously we had this closed MLS structure, and the value of the real estate agent or brokerage was that they could get you on the MLS. And
absolutely.
today that's been democratized through, Trulia and Zillow, et cetera, a few other platforms, Redfin. And so they're doing a lot of that for you, right? They are distribution. So
There's a lot of lawsuits happening right now, big one against that whole structure with the private MLS, the democratization, like
yeah, well,
lots of big
there were a
lawsuits.
lot of lawsuits between the taxi lobby and Uber as well.
Yeah, there sure was. Yeah,
Yeah, I know how that's gonna shake out. I mean, look, the you can't protect the free market. You shouldn't be able to protect the free market in the US. And I think that this is an
sure.
example of like, when democratization happens and it's better for the masses, you're gonna get a ton of lawsuits from the incumbents that make a lot of money.
Totally.
And we're seeing it slowly. It's just there are a shit ton of realtors out there. Speaking of, the National Association of Realtors says that the average realtor sells 5 houses a year. Um, but when you factor in all of the licensed agents that sell nothing, that number comes down to less than 1 house a year.
Yes. So that's very interesting stat
Mhm.
is because a lot of things are not reported correctly. For example, there are big teams just like mine. Let's say that they sell 1,000 houses, right? And that they have 100 agents on the team. There's many team leaders who will take 100% credit for those 100 houses.
Mm.
Meaning when the National Association of Realtors looks at the individ at all those 100 agents, they all didn't sell shit. The team leader sold 100
Oh, that's interesting.
or sold sold all the houses.
Hmm. Well, okay, that's interesting. So you're
Yeah,
the
it's super interesting.
what you're alluding to is that it skews the statistics. So it makes more sense to say the average realtor sells 5 than it does to say there are a whole bunch of people selling 0.
Totally, and at the same time, like, how many realtors it's I don't know the exact stat, but how many realtors are part-time?
A lot, but that's kind
Right?
of my point.
A lot.
Yeah, it's less of a knock on it where I'm going with this really isn't isn't that all realtors are lazy, which I don't need to say that. It's more about, my point of interest with it, from a statistical perspective is like you have a brokerage, and when you look at the number of realtors that are part time and that don't sell a lot of stuff, how do you build culture in an environment in a brokerage where you have people that are just not as engaged as a key performer?
Yeah, so I mean, you look at any kind of 1099 organization, right? Not specific to realtors. Like, how do you build culture around a bunch of independent contractors,
Hmm.
right? Who don't have any responsibility to do shit, just maintain their license. Culture is created by the people that show up,
Mm,
right? And then you have subcultures of the part time agents. Like, we have part time agents now who don't show up to anything and don't sell anything, right? I no longer work with them in my organization
mm,
as I've scaled back, but, they don't have an impact on culture. And maybe your culture is a monthly happy hour,
mm.
right? But, like, what other independent contractor type of organization can say they have a strong culture?
It's
Right? Like,
tough,
I
man.
can't think of any.
It's tough. Well, I come from an interesting place growing up selling knives, functionally.
Cutco, baby.
That's
Yeah.
right. Functionally door to door and, not quite, but, um, they had a tremendously strong culture and that the Vector Marketing is the company that owns them, and the statistics at the time when I was there were that the average rep would lose, like, $2 over the course of the summer, right? They would spend $140 on a sample kit, and on average, they would make $138 at the time. Right.
Brutal.
Now that's the average, but these are college kids also, right? It
Totally.
it is brutal. So often, like, their parents would buy the sample kit for them, and then they would make $140. But the thing is, and then I, on the other hand, right, made 100 grand plus selling knives when I was 18. Um, the thing is, the culture was so strong, and it was such a community of engagement, motivation, learning, that people stuck around all summer. So the only way that that
Sure.
works is if you have this crazy strong culture. And so I think I grew up in a place of learning some of those lessons. Many of them I don't do a good job implementing in my own companies. Um, but I think it's a really good question. So, what are the things from your perspective um, that do build a strong culture with 1099s that don't have any real responsibility or to the organization itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to leadership, right? Like, is the leader leading from the front or leading from the back? Is it like Mel Gibson in Braveheart rallying his troops, or is it like the kings on the other side who are sipping the tea and forcing their soldiers into battle, right?
Mm,
So leading from the front is a great way to inspire people into action instead of like forcing people into doing something, which you're not going to get a culture or any kind of buy-in on that, right? Having great staff, um, like something that I think is big on culture and a bunch of independent contractors is using Slack really well, right?
mm,
Making Slack fun, right? Having those activities, recognizing the people doing the right things, right? Because there is a bigger culture, but in these sales organizations, just like Cutco, there are the subcultures. Like, you hung out with the other dudes that were killing it, not with the people that didn't sell shit, right?
yeah, 100%.
Same.
So I love that. Do you have to be an independent contributor in order to lead from the front?
Meaning, do you need to sell?
Yeah, exactly. Meaning, do you have to be the top salesperson or one of
The
them
rainmaker.
in order to lead
Yeah,
from the
I
front?
mean, look, like, I lead from the that's a good question, Brad. I lead from the front because I work my ass off. There is no question of anyone in my environment, right? I will work my ass off. Is, does that mean I still sell? No, I don't sell at all. In fact, you don't want me as a realtor. I'm not gonna do a good job. I'm way too busy, right? But knowing that I work, knowing that I'm getting stuff done, I promote the hell out of myself, right? Everyone sees it. I can lead from the front without directly being in production.
Mm. Yep. I like that. There is my, like, internal salesperson always wants to lead from the front from a sales perspective. Um,
Totally.
and I think that that's really, I think that's a transitional lesson as you grow a business and add more staff and go through sort of through the levels is to remember that you have to figure out the way to lead in a new role, right? And what that looks
Absolutely.
like.
Absolutely. And this transition, I'm transitioning right now into this executive role with the acquisition. Like, it's not easy and it's expensive. It probably cost me more money than it made me once upon a time. Maybe not true, but but at least I felt that way, right? I've developed other leaders in my business who do lead from the front. And when I advise smaller team leaders, smaller entrepreneurs in the real estate space, we tell them, lead from the front. Like, if you want your team to prospect on the phone, well, then you should fucking prospect on the phone too. And everyone should know that you're doing that.
Yep.
Right. And I always use that Braveheart example, right? Are you leading from the front? Are you leading from the back?
Yep. I love that. Uh, do you think that real estate brokerages are going to be dead in 10 years?
I think that there is a big shift in the traditional real estate brokerage model. And we see it every day. Over the last, I would say, maybe 10, 12 years, there's been the advent of cloud-based brokerages, right? One of the biggest ones is EXP, and then the one that I'm associated with is LPT. And there's some other upstarts that we don't need to talk about, but, but, they're providing all the services of a brokerage without the brick and mortar, allowing for the teams to lean on the back end. It's like a back end, right? Like, I owned a brokerage. I had compliance, I had licensing, I had liability, right? All those things didn't make me any fucking money. They're headaches, right? So now I'm able to focus by being at a cloud-based brokerage. I'm able to focus on the dollar-making activities while letting the compliance and the bullshit and all the infrastructure and the liability by leading on a bigger organization who has way more money than I did in my small brokerage, who are able to handle that stuff with their team of lawyers instead,
Yeah.
right? Um, and like the brokerage used to be the only way to have agents work underneath you, right? Now, the real estate team is the future. I am extremely bullish on more bigger teams taking more market share and the old school brokerage style. I don't need to say any names, but the ones whose signs you see in your town, right, for your whole life, right? All these old school names. Um, they're slowly dying out in my perspective, right? As the teams grow bigger and do more business and provide more to the agents and provide a better opportunity for the agents to be successful, because that's literally what's happening, right? And the brokerage just kind of serving as the platform to do business instead of the all-encompassing everything.
When do humans in the real estate transaction become less relevant or not relevant?
I mean, so right, I love AI. Small thing. I wrote one of the first ChatGPT courses to ever hit the market, so shout out to me. But it came out 2 weeks after ChatGPT came out, right? I think I
Amazing.
told you about that. Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Um,
Let's close the loop on real estate and you tell me about that. That'll be a good transition into the rest of the AI stuff you've done.
yeah. So so like, do I want a AI to negotiate for me and advise? No. Think about the average homeowner, average home buyer, not me and you. They buy 2 or 3 houses. What, did you buy 2 or 3 houses last year? Right? Like,
Yes, I did.
yeah, right? So like, we can negotiate better, but the average state worker here in Sacramento, they don't have time to mess with all that shit. They're looking for a consultant to help them through, which is probably the most money they're ever gonna fucking spend,
Yeah,
right? And I love Claude, and Claude is smart. I ain't gonna trust it with all that.
yeah. Don't you think we'll get there though?
Dude, maybe, but I don't see it. Lots of people are forecasting that those successful people in real estate in the future are the bigger teams with a great understanding of technology. I mean, look, I became number 1 team in California within 6 years of being licensing because I understood marketing, technology, and lead gen, right? Um, Now I can do all that stuff 10 times as fast by using AI,
Mhm.
right? So that's where the advantage will come. Right, we ran this thing with Zillow. I used to buy and sell all the houses for Zillow in Sacramento, a couple thousand houses over a couple years, and we experimented with allowing consumers to go to the house themselves by getting access and all this, right? Number 1, it created a safety issue because all of a sudden, now people were scamming and just getting in the house and moving fucking in,
Well, you're
right?
in California.
Stealing. Well, you're in Texas, the same shit's gonna happen, right? Um At least in Austin, I don't know about Dallas, but,
It's easier to get squatters out of a house in Texas than in California, so I hear.
yeah, definitely, definitely. But I mean, and people still wanted to talk to an agent. Is there a time where you go see the house yourself and the security does that good of a job that eliminates, the need for an agent? Look, if I own a house and I've lived there and I'm letting strangers come in and look at it, I'm not gonna let some AI, like, manage that, dude. Like, people are gonna steal my stuff.
Okay. Uh,
But everything is changing,
yeah,
right? Like, tell me where I can go get a robot that'll show us some houses, and I'll go buy 10 of them right now.
it's coming, man. It's coming.
It's coming, I know,
Elon,
it's coming.
it's approaching March of 2026, and Elon just shut down the Model S and Model X plant so that he can just go full tilt building humanoid
Tesla bot.
robots. I mean,
Yeah, I know,
it's coming.
I know, I
Um,
know.
okay, so you built the first ChatGPT course. This is I know that you've been leaning super heavy on AI to fuel the consulting company that you just sold, and your own content generation. Tell me about the creation of that course, and was that just a money grab, or how did that come to be?
Well, remember Jarvis when we all used that and thought it was the coolest thing ever?
Jarvis being the email platform,
Jasper,
Jasper, then
Jasper.
Jarvis, then whatever. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
know those guys. They headquartered in Austin.
Yeah, so I used the hell out of Jasper, and we used it for copy and everything back then, and then when ChatGPT came out, I was, "Oh, dude, I wonder if I can make a course because 'cause I'm using the hell out of it after 1 week and having been using Jasper for a year or 2 previously," and I made a course, and I aimed it at realtors, and it did really well. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of the AI, and I just dove deep. So, yeah, over the last couple years, I've been able to scale multiple businesses and my own personal brand by going hard into AI.
What are you doing today, to leverage AI for content production, and what have you done in the last 6 to 12 months?
Oh god, everything.
I know
Um,
that those questions are so funny to me because I know that, like, when you listen to this stuff 2 years from now or 5 years from now, it's gonna be ridiculous. But
yeah, right?
right
I mean,
now,
like
it's super relevant.
yeah, so, I use Claude all day, every day for content creation, written copy on all the social media platforms, email, marketing copy along different websites and webinars. I use Gemini to scale massive amounts of information, process massive amounts of information. And with social media and just marketing is we can get the data on any post that we do on any platform, right? So I pull all the fucking data, look for things that have worked across 12 months, 16 months worth of data. The AI is able to pick that up, and the AI is able to retool what works to make more content that works.
And
And it's worked really.
when you say pull the data, are you saying pull your own or pull your competitors' data and look at the posts they have?
So I used to pull the competitors' data,
Mhm.
but now I'm just focused on my own because, like, I used to always, pull like Hermosi stuff from like Metrical. Well, I ain't Hermosi, right? So, like, like where he was when I pulled his data compared to where I was when I started this is on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So I'm going to focus on my own audience and my own stuff that works instead of trying to copy someone else's stuff that works.
Mm. What's metrical?
Metricool is a social media scheduler. I don't use it anymore, but it did give you the data from your competitors. I mean, now you can do all that and go high level.
Interesting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've interviewed, both Robin and Sean from High Level, at different eras in the high level growth path, which is pretty interesting. I mean,
Yeah, that is cool.
that's awesome. Like, I mean, I had Sean on, Beyond a Million 2 years ago, and then Robin
Wow.
earlier this year. Yeah. Um, I love that. Where's the line for content production right now with something going out that's fully AI versus or email or any other content that you're producing? How much is 100% AI and how much do you use AI as a starting point and then you tweak it, hone it yourself?
95% AI.
Damn. Awesome. I love that.
Yes. But then again, right, like, I'll take a podcast I have a podcast, and I'll do, different guests, and I have all the transcripts saved on a board where I can tell Claude to go process the story, all the transcripts and find me good posts. So it was something that it was a real conversation, but the AI is mining for things that work according to the data that we have seen works,
Yeah.
right? If stories hit about this, go find more stories in my transcript folder and retool them so we can also make them hit.
So that's great. So mechanically, what you're doing is you're creating transcripts of anything that you've done, audio or video, putting them in a
Yes.
folder. Are they all independent files in a folder, and then you have Claude go look through them?
Yeah.
Awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so to that end, if 95% of what you're doing is AI generated, you just sold the company that was producing all this stuff and putting it out. Do you think that information marketing and coaching is going to die?
So, right, this is about content and marketing. The information and the coaching comes from experience and perspective, right? I've done thousands of coaching calls. I've scaled hundreds of teams. I've scaled my own team from somebody who got rated by the feds to number one in fucking Cali, right? So there's lots of experience and lots of reps. The AI doesn't have that. And the AI doesn't have the stories and the emotions and the feelings. So for the content creation, it's fine because it's mining what I have, right? But for the actual IP, it comes from reps and receipts.
Mm, I like it. So why sell now?
Why do the acquisition now?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, just greatest opportunity I think I've ever had.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What can you share around it? So you had, I sat with you a few months ago and you told me the numbers around what you were making from the real estate coaching business and the brokerage. And as you said at the beginning of this conversation, today you make a lot more from the coaching consulting company. What can you
Well, that's
share?
also where my focus is too,
Yeah, that makes sense.
right?
And you mentioned why, which is that you had an opportunity to work with high performers, and that's tougher to do when you're selling houses and working with real estate agents.
Yeah.
So, what was the makeup of the business, and what were the terms of the sale? Whatever you can share, and what did that look like?
Sure. So the makeup of the business is one of my mentors who has done a lot for my life, and was my coach and who I coached with. Um, he blessed this and we built it. We built it with almost all organic marketing, very little lead spend. We may have spent 20 grand in 3 years on ads,
Damn.
right? All organic social, no debt. And because of the success of the business, we had buyers who were interested in buying it, right? And the buyer is the person who owns the brokers that I moved my all my agents to.
Which
So it was a
is
cohesive
LPT.
LPT,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's a cohesive the CEO and founder of LPT is a badass. He's a guy who owned a small mortgage shop and obsessed over all of Dan Kennedy's books and courses, implemented them all, and made one of the biggest mortgage companies in the state of Florida.
Mm,
From direct response marketing, TV, direct mail, right? Radio, straight Dan Kennedy playbook, man.
amazing.
And you know me, dude. Like that got me pumped,
Yeah.
right? So to be able to team up with somebody like that with a capitalization and the opportunity and already the attention that he has, along with the direct response background, like that's a match made in heaven for me, bro. Right? Like, so it's really exciting. We got a lot of good stuff coming. A lot of good stuff coming. And
What
at the end of the day, in 3 years, I was able to scale a consulting company, not a SaaS product, a consulting company into a multiple figure, like a good friggin' exit.
so what did the makeup of what were you selling specifically? And what did the escalation path through that look like? From
Yeah,
like a
I mean,
customer journey perspective?
so team leaders who want to scale their real estate business, right? And it's not just a one-dimensional path, right? Like there's multiple angles: recruiting, lead gen, operations, admin, accountability, leadership, right? And previously in coaching, those were different segments of different coaching programs. So I put it all into one, along with the tech that they need, along with training the agents, not just the owner. And many people resonated with the offer. and it
And
worked out.
and what was the offer and what were the price points that people bought? So, like, I like the nuances here because you look at people that are launching stuff like that or are living in a place where they're selling information or coaching. I know the model, but, most of them are not sellable, and most of them are messy at best. So, like, did you have a you're posting content all the time. You said you got fucking what, 31 million views or something in the last 28 days?
37. Yeah.
37. Let's not discount those 6 million views.
Yeah.
Uh, and
It's a
the
lot,
it's
dude.
crazy. And so what's the front end of that funnel? What are you selling people for a low dollar amount, if anything? And
There's no ascension. There's no ascension, dude, which drives me crazy too. It's straight to high ticket.
okay. Well, and I see a lot more of that today. Are you trying so you have a bunch of content and then eventually you're making an offer for some high ticket. What was the dollar amount?
It's 6 grand a month or 7% of top line revenue, whichever is greater.
Wow. And so do you push them into like a DM and sell them through a DM? Do you schedule calls? Do you have setters
No,
that
I
do
mean,
that?
dude, I do a webinar every month, and it's all organic traffic, and we follow up with the webinar registrants. My email list. I mean, also, this is a small audience, right? These are people in a real estate. It's not making money for everybody. It's not just selling how to make money,
Mhm.
right? It's not selling how to do an affiliate fucking program. Right? It's specific to the avatar. I have credibility in the audience from my success and from my social media and my organic marketing, and, we push people into a webinar organic and just l I have a podcast, we talked about the podcast when I first started, this your podcast was inspiration for mine to work with new businesses, and I have one awesome salesperson and one setter. We just grind it out, man.
Wild. Um, okay, well, I know you've got a call with your new boss coming up shortly here. Now that you've sold into a corporate company, um,
Yeah.
what what beliefs did you have about money, success, or leadership when you started on this journey, in 2014 or earlier that you now think are wrong?
Oh, fuck. That I now think are wrong. Like, here's the thing with me is I wake up, I work my ass off, and I try to be a good person and do what I say while promoting myself. Right? That's all I've ever done.
Mm,
It's worked out. Right? There were times in leadership where I thought there was some secret pill. Oh, if I hire this coach and they teach me this one script, then everything's gonna fucking change. No, nothing's gonna change. There's no one specific set of ad copy that's gonna change everything. I used to look for stuff like that, for the silver bullet, right? And I believe that that existed. And what I found out is that it doesn't, right? Like the real trick is grit, work hard, get your hands dirty, right? There's a quote by Arnold Schwarzenegger that I love, and I say it often. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise.
dude, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a beast.
Beast. But that's one of his mantras, and it makes a lot of sense. I woke up hella early this morning, went to the gym, working my ass. I'm straight till 5 PM on calls. It's 8:56 right now, right? And I'm gonna promote the hell out of myself and show up.
Do you have any rules around protecting family and family time while trying to produce a lot for the business?
Well, work-life balance does not exist. Work-life integration is the best that you can do, right? I don't work on the weekend. I don't actively. I mean, I'll create content on the weekend, but, like, ultimately, I adhere to a schedule. My schedule is dialed. I think that's one of the secrets to success. I know you're the same way, right? Like, our schedules are dialed. And that's the first thing. Everything that's important should live in the schedule. Breakfast is in my schedule. Waking up, lunch, dinner, putting the kids to bed. It's all my schedule. So it has to be done. So the important stuff that you want to get done needs to live somewhere. and we can go a little bit longer, dude. I'll be okay.
Ah, your new boss is not that important.
No, the call is not with the new boss, it's with somebody else, but yeah.
I love it. Um, yeah, that's great, man. Well, look, if you're looking at, let's say you have a successful business today, like you have had with the brokerage, and you want to start promoting yourself, building the opportunity to have more credibility, leverage as a personal brand, or to create information and consulting with the tools that exist today. How do you look at starting that? Let's say you want to go from nothing to building something in the next 6 months. How would you approach that?
Yeah, I think the personal brand is the biggest gold rush happening right now, and I'm sure that you feel the same way, right? Like, work on your personal brand. A very easy way to do that is post like hell on social media. Find the one platform that you like, find the one platform that likes you back, right? For me, it's Facebook. It's not YouTube. My YouTube channel fucking sucks, right? And I have a YouTube coach. I found the platform that works for me, and I go all in and go hard. And like when you're creating an info product or some kind of coaching or consulting program, you're only talking to yourself like two steps back, right? So what could you
Mm,
tell yourself last year that would have helped you now? That's your avatar. It helps for me. I'm not some like outsider that said, I'm going to be a real estate coach. I was the number one fucking guy in the fifth biggest economy in the world, right? I kind of knew my shit.
yeah, I think that that's an important takeaway for everybody. There's nothing that I dislike more inside of the coaching space than people trying to teach
Selling how to
stuff.
be a coach.
Yes, trying to. Well, you know what's funny is that I know people that sell how to be a coach, that are really good, and that are like they have expertise in coaching, but
Yeah,
um, I do not like the how common it's become for people to get on and teach about something that they just have not. They don't have the reps, right? They haven't done it, haven't
dude.
been there.
Yeah, especially with the AI slop now, you can look up anything and say that you're an expert.
Yes, and that's why, so let me go to that. When you say that 95% of the content you push out is AI driven, how do you ensure that the stuff you push out does not end up being AI slop?
So it comes from real experience, right? It comes from my reps. It comes from my expertise. Just because I'm having AI mine it on the transcripts I have, right? So it's not like it's making up fake shit. I still review and look at everything, but it's mining the stuff. For example, I'll do, I don't know, 100 coaching calls a month or something, right? I log the transcript for every coaching call, and there's so many nuggets in there. So it's
Mm,
real stuff that's being shared. The AI is doing the mining. The AI is doing the copywriting. Look, I took every copywriting course that ever came out.
mm,
I became a much better copywriter when I found ChatGPT, right? Like straight up.
yeah,
I took every copywriting course. I wasted so many years on copywriting courses.
yeah. Well, look, so that's one of the things that when you say I don't want uh, AI negotiating a house for me, I challenge that because, like, in a lot of ways, I've spent countless hours in high level negotiations, and I'm a human. Maybe I slept like shit last night. Maybe I forgot something.
Totally.
Maybe my emotion gets teed up in some way, right? Maybe I just don't play it quite right in the moment, right? In the split second that I have to make a decision about which path to go down. And, obviously AI at this point in time hallucinates, but if it's trained on all the Dan Kennedy information, and all of the and it's
That's a
interpreting
good idea to make a bot.
every single interaction with all of that information, there's a high, at least I know that it's going to be referencing that stuff with each decision. And so I'm curious to see where we go with that. But I certainly, for me, it's a really good filter to help me think about what the next path will be if I'm creating it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like, I will put all the relevant data into AI to help it look at different angles and go to first person thinking, right? However, I'm not gonna blindly follow the suggestion.
Yeah. Yep.
And yet you're a high level negotiator who has massive reps. The average home buyer is not. They're a state worker who is worried about what they're gonna feed the kids for dinner and whether or not they can afford their new mortgage payment. Like, they're not thinking about any of this stuff.
Yep. What advice do you have for a 25-year-old entrepreneur getting going?
Man, get to fucking work. Get your schedule dialed, promote the hell out of yourself, and work your ass off. Work your ass off. Growth takes sacrifice. Be ready to work. Be ready to sacrifice. Right? There's no trick. Show up every day, do the stuff that you if you say you're going to do something, do it, and then promote yourself.
Love it. Suneet, where do you want to point people at this point in time? How can people find out more about you?
I mean, yeah, just go to my Facebook, Suneet Agarwal. If you're in real estate, I just put out this book, Team Leader Secrets. You can go to teamleadersecrets.com and just, follow me on social. I would love to chat, especially if you're in real estate looking for a coach or consulting. I just, want people listening. I know we have a wide variety of entrepreneurs listening on here. Like, everything you want is closer than you think. You just, get out of that valley of despair, keep going. Dude, when I got rated, like, I never thought shit would be the same again. When I was the number one agent in California, I thought I had finally made it. I've had all these opportunities where I think, oh, this is it, this is it. But they keep on coming, dude. So be open to all the goodness in the world, right? Like, before we get into all kinds of, like, manifestation and all this and journaling, which is all stuff that I love, but it is possible for you to live the life of your dreams, and I'm just proof of that.
I love it, man. Dude, well, when you get to Austin, we'll get around too, but I appreciate you carving out time today.
Yes, thanks, Brad.
Thank you, man.